The morning rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets of downtown Seattle glistening under the emerging sun. Marcus Reed pushed open the door to his favorite coffee shop, Bean and Brew, with his 5-year-old daughter Emma's hand clasped firmly in his own. "Daddy, can I get a chocolate muffin today?" Emma's bright eyes looked up at him hopefully. Marcus smiled, though his heart ached a little. Money was tight. It always was since his wife Sarah had passed away 2 years ago from cancer. Between his job as a freelance graphic designer and raising Emma alone, every dollar counted. "How about we split one?" he suggested gently. "That way we can both enjoy it." Emma beamed, satisfied with the compromise. That was one thing Marcus had learned about his daughter. She had her mother's generous heart and never asked for more than she needed. The coffee shop was moderately busy for a Tuesday morning. Marcus joined the line, letting Emma lean against his leg while she clutched her stuffed rabbit. Mr. Hops. He was mentally calculating whether he could afford his usual coffee or if he should stick to the smaller size when raised voices caught his attention. "I said I want to speak to your manager. This is completely unacceptable." A man in an expensive suit stood at the counter, his face red with anger. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had the entitled posture of someone used to getting his way. In front of him stood a woman, probably in her early 30s, with her hand pressed to her chest where coffee had clearly spilled down her cream-colored blouse. "Sir, it was an accident," the woman said quietly, her voice steady despite the obvious distress. "I bumped into you. I already apologized." "An accident?" the man bellowed. "Do you know how much this suit costs? This is our money. You've ruined it." He gestured dramatically at a small coffee stain on his sleeve. The barista behind the counter looked uncomfortable. "Sir, if you could please lower your voice." "Don't tell me." "What to do?" he snapped at the young employee. "I want this woman to pay for the dry cleaning, and I want her removed from this establishment. People like her shouldn't be allowed in places like this." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The woman was impeccably dressed despite the coffee stain, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant ponytail, but she seemed genuinely distressed by the confrontation. Around them, other customers had gone silent, watching the scene unfold but doing nothing. "Daddy?" Emma whispered, tugging his hand. Marcus looked down at his daughter, seeing concern in her young face. He thought about what Sarah would have wanted, what kind of man she'd want him to be, what example he should set for their daughter. Taking a breath, he stepped forward. "Hey," Marcus said firmly but calmly, moving closer to the confrontation. "I think you need to take it down a notch." The man turned, sizing Marcus up with obvious disdain. Marcus was aware he didn't look particularly impressive. Worn jeans, a simple jacket, sneakers that had seen better days. Next to this man's obvious wealth, he knew what he looked like. "Excuse me?" the man said. "This is none of your business. You're making it everyone's business by shouting," Marcus replied. The lady apologized. "It was an accident. Your suit will be fine after one dry clean, but the way you're treating her won't be fine." The woman looked at Marcus with surprise, her brown eyes wide. "Do you know who I am?" the man demanded. "Should I?" Marcus asked. "Because right now you're just someone acting like a bully in a coffee shop." The man's face grew even redder. "I'm Gerald Hutchinson, CEO of Hutchinson Enterprises. I could buy this entire block if I wanted to." "Good for you," Marcus said without inflection. "Doesn't give you the right to humiliate someone over an accident." "Marcus?" The woman began softly, then stopped, seeming surprised that she'd said his name. But of course, he was a regular here. The staff knew. Gerald Hutchinson took a threatening step toward Marcus. "You want to get involved? Fine. I'll have both of you thrown out." Emma pressed closer to her father's leg, and Marcus instinctively put a protective hand on her shoulder. But before he could respond, the coffee shop manager, a kind, middle-aged woman named Rita, finally emerged from the back. "Mr. Hutchinson," Rita said with professional calm, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We don't tolerate harassment of our customers." "What?" Gerald sputtered. "She's the one who—" "Sir, I saw what happened on our security camera. The collision was mutual, and the lady apologized immediately. You're the one causing a disturbance." Rita stood her ground, though Marcus could see her hands trembling slightly. "Please leave, or I'll call the police." For a moment, Gerald looked like he might argue further. Then, seeming to realize he was outnumbered and that every phone in the shop was now pointed at him, he grabbed his briefcase. "This place is beneath me anyway," he spat. He jabbed a finger at Marcus. "And you just made an enemy you can't afford to have." "I'll survive," Marcus said quietly. Gerald stormed out, nearly knocking over a chair on his way. The door slammed behind him, and the tension in the shop slowly began to dissipate. Nervous laughter and murmured conversations rippled through the customers. Rita turned to the woman. "Miss Chen, I am so sorry about that. Your coffee is on the house today, and please let us pay for your dry cleaning." "That's not necessary, Rita, but thank you," the woman, Miss Chen, said with a gracious smile. Then she turned to Marcus. "And thank you, you didn't have to do that." Up close, Marcus realized she was strikingly beautiful, with intelligent eyes and a warm smile that seemed to transform her whole face. "It was the right thing to do," Marcus said simply. He felt Emma tugging his hand. "This is my daughter, Emma. Emma, say hello." "Hello," Emma said shyly, peeking out from behind her father. "I'm sorry that mean man yelled at you." Miss Chen crouched down to Emma's level, her expression softening. "Thank you, sweetheart. You know what? I think brave people like your daddy deserve chocolate muffins. Would you like to share one with me?" Emma looked up at Marcus for permission, and he nodded, touched by the gesture. "I'm Vivian, by the way," the woman said, standing and extending her hand to Marcus. "Vivian Chen." "Marcus Reed," he replied, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "Nice to meet you, despite the circumstances." They ended up sitting together at a corner table, Emma happily munching on her muffin while Marcus and Vivian talked. She asked about Emma, about his work, about his life in Seattle. There was something genuine in her interest, something that made Marcus feel truly seen for the first time in a long while. "Emma's in kindergarten at Greenwood Elementary," Marcus found himself explaining. "She loves art class and story time. Gets that from her mother. Sarah was an elementary school teacher. She passed away 2 years ago." "I'm so sorry," Vivian said, and the sympathy in her eyes seemed real, not perfunctory. "Cancer," Marcus continued, surprised at how easy it was to talk to this stranger. "It was fast. 6 months from diagnosis to—" Emma was only 3. "Some days are harder than others, but we manage. We have each other." Emma, sensing the sad turn in conversation, climbed into her father's lap and kissed his cheek. "We're a team, Daddy and me." Vivian smiled at them both, something wistful crossing her face. "You're lucky to have each other. That's special." They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily. Vivian spoke about her own childhood in San Francisco, her love of art and design, which connected wonderfully with Marcus's work, and her appreciation for good coffee. What she didn't mention was anything about her work or wealth, and Marcus found that refreshing. In a city like Seattle, full of tech money and startup culture, genuine connections felt rare. Finally, Marcus checked his watch and realized they needed to go. Emma had a play date, and he had a client call scheduled. "This was really nice," Vivian said as they gathered their things. "Could I give you my number? Maybe we could do this again sometime?" Marcus felt his heart skip. Was she asking him out? He hadn't been on a date since Sarah died. The thought was both terrifying and exciting. "I'd like that," he said, trying to keep his voice casual as they exchanged numbers. As they left the coffee shop, Emma waved enthusiastically at Vivian, who waved back with equal enthusiasm. Marcus couldn't help but smile. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Vivian began seeing each other regularly. Coffee dates turned into lunch dates. Lunch dates turned into dinners, with Emma joining sometimes, other times when his neighbor could babysit. Vivian was wonderful with his daughter, never trying too hard or treating her like an accessory. She genuinely seemed to enjoy Emma's company, listening to her endless stories about Mr. Hops and her friends at school. What Marcus didn't know was that Vivian Chen wasn't just comfortable financially. She was the founder and CEO of Chen Technologies, a software company that had revolutionized data security and was worth billions. She'd kept this from him deliberately, tired of people treating her differently once they knew about her wealth. With Marcus, she could just be Vivian, Not the billionaire, not the CEO. Just a woman enjoying time with a genuinely good man and his daughter. But secrets, Vivian knew, had a way of coming out. It happened on their 2-month anniversary of that first coffee shop meeting. Marcus had saved up to take Vivian to a nicer restaurant in downtown Seattle. Nothing extravagant, but special enough to show her how much he'd come to care for her. Emma was staying overnight at her grandmother's house for the first time in months. The restaurant was elegant, with soft lighting and quiet conversation. Marcus was halfway through telling Vivian about a new client project when a commotion at the entrance caught their attention. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hutchinson, but we're fully booked tonight," the hostess was saying. Marcus's stomach dropped. Gerald Hutchinson stood at the entrance, and with him was a woman dripping in jewelry and designer clothes. But what made Marcus's blood run cold was the moment Gerald's eyes swept the restaurant and landed on their table. The recognition was instant. Then came the cruel smile. "Well, well," Gerald said, walking over despite the hostess's protests. "If it isn't the hero from the coffee shop." And his eyes shifted to Vivian, and his expression changed to shock. "Vivian Chen? What are you doing with him?" Vivian's face remained composed, but Marcus saw her hands tighten on her napkin. "Good evening, Gerald. I'm having dinner. What does it look like? You know each other?" Marcus asked, confused. "Gerald was a competitor before his company went under 6 months ago," Vivian said coolly. "He's not anymore." "You're Vivian Chen," Marcus said slowly, the pieces starting to click together. "As in Chen Technologies Vivian Chen?" The look on Vivian's face, guilt mixed with fear, told him everything. Gerald laughed, a harsh sound. "Oh, this is rich. You didn't know? You've been dating one of the richest women in the Pacific Northwest. What did you think, that she was just some regular person?" "Gerald, leave," Vivian said, her voice sharp. "Now." "This is priceless," Gerald continued, ignoring her. "What's your angle, Reed? Dating rich women to get a piece of their fortune? Very enterprising. That's enough." Vivian stood, her eyes blazing. "Marcus is worth 100 of you. He stood up for me when I was a stranger, expecting nothing in return. Everything you think you know is wrong." But Marcus was already standing too, pulling out his wallet. "I need some air," he said. Quietly, putting cash on the table, probably more than their meal cost, but he wasn't thinking clearly. "Vivian, I'll call you." "Marcus, wait." Vivian reached for him, but he was already walking away. Outside, the cool Seattle night air hit his face, and Marcus leaned against the building, his mind racing. Vivian Chen, billionaire Vivian Chen. He pulled out his phone and did what he should have done weeks ago. He searched her name. The results were overwhelming. Articles about her company, her net worth, her philanthropy, photos of her at galas and tech conferences. This was who he'd been dating, someone from a completely different world. His phone rang. Vivian. He let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. Finally, on the 4th call, he answered. "I need time to think." "Marcus, please, let me explain. You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing, Vivian." Marcus ran his hand through his hair. "I've been saving up to take you to dinner while you... God, you probably spend more on coffee in a month than I make. That doesn't matter to me. It matters to me." Marcus's voice rose, then he controlled it, aware of passers-by. "I have a daughter, Vivian. I can't have her get attached to someone who's living in a completely different reality than us. What is this even about for you? Slumming it with the regular people? How dare you?" Vivian's voice shook. "I care about you. About Emma. That's real." "I don't know what's real anymore," Marcus said quietly. "I need to go." He hung up before she could respond. The next few days were agony. Emma kept asking about Vivian, wanting to know when they'd see her again. Marcus didn't know how to explain to a 5-year-old that the kind lady who'd become so important to them had been hiding who she really was. Flowers arrived at his apartment, notes. Vivian tried calling, texting. Marcus ignored it all, throwing himself into work and caring for Emma. But on the 4th day, something different arrived, an envelope delivered by courier. Inside was a letter in Vivian's handwriting. "Dear Marcus, I owe you the truth, all of it. When I met you at that coffee shop, I had just come from a board meeting where investors